Hey, man.
What's going on?
What's going on, Ray?
Come on in. Welcome to Studio 825, home of Second Chance Rising.
And, state your full name, social security. No, just what's your name, brother?
Hey, it's Ray Obry. So, vocalist, songwriter for Second Chance Rising and Studio 825 proprietary here. Mixer producer is what I call myself in my dreamland of.
Right on. So Ray and I are in a band. Ray's been in this band for a good while. He started the band and is the band leader. And anyway, just joined this band recently, and we're gonna go check out the studio.
Yeah.
So hey, man, Ray, tell me about this space. It looks like kind of like a garage, but not anymore.
Pretty much the way it started out. So the first EP that we did as a band was called The Healing. And we literally filmed the majority of that in a 10 by 10 bedroom, except for the drums we filmed at the church. This was just kind of what we call down here in Countryland in the South, kind of like a pole barn. And I put 4 walls around it and turned it into a studio basically after the wife kicked me out of the house. So it's been serviced pretty well. It's not perfect. It is literally probably, from what everyone says when you're looking at building a studio, it's the worst possible shape and size that you can get. It is perfectly square, a 19 by 19, which is never good in a studio setting, with a relatively low ceiling of 8 feet. So, but I've been able to make it work. I've been able to learn the limitations of the room over the last nearly 10 years of recording out here now. So we've been able to make it work. Not the best home studio or best situation, but definitely a lot better than where we started out.
I think it's cool, man. So I know Ray's saying. Got to ask him some follow-up questions. So you say your wife kicked you out of the house. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, well, we got pretty noisy in there, and as you're learning now that we have some pretty long recording sessions, and some of those early ones, we would record up to 12, 1 o'clock in the morning and start at 8 o'clock. So got a little busy in there.
I'm gonna think, man, you got divorced, but that's not the case, right?
Yeah, no, not the case.
Roger that. All right, man. So how did you do the wood paneling in here yourself? Because it's like pretty, like a country kind of vibe thing happening
so
in here.
I had a friend of mine help me, basically, and it was pretty easy to do and relatively inexpensive. I think probably under $1,000 to put the 4 walls in there. So we just used some, basically just framed it in with 2x4s, framed the outside in what I think they call that TG11 board. It was relatively cheap.
Yeah.
We bought it at a building surplus place. It was Seconds plywood. It's all insulated on the outside walls. There's no double walls or anything like that you would see in a typical studio, but we're able to get by with it. Yeah. Kind of wanted to leave it rough and kind of rust it because everything's not quite level out here, so we weren't trying to make it perfect, but just trying to make it functional. Concrete floors, we kind of took some, which was pretty neat, we kind of took a skill saw and dug the concrete and kind of painted this and make it look like a little marble type look.
It looks cool.
And then we use we just use area rugs. We got 3 different area rugs in here, so the room is fairly dead.
It's surprising how, with the concrete floor and the wood walls, how it's not echoey in here.
Yeah.
It's just not. It's just like...
And we've used several different configurations. Yeah, and you can see the drapes here that we've recently this year have moved the drums over into this corner. And between those drapes, which were relatively a low purchase off of Amazon, I think I got all those drapes and everything for like $90. And they're about 1 foot from the wall. And behind that, which was a poor design choice for me when I closed this in, there's windows. But there's blinds over the windows with more cloth. There's a 1 foot gap. And that serves 2 purposes. It does cut down the reflections, gives us a cool vibe. But it also uses some room for our storage for guitar cases and mics and a bunch of junk that we just used to lay around and look unsightly. So we're able to put that behind there too. So it's
a hidden stuff. I got you. That's
so
really...
it serves as a couple different purposes.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, man. So tell me about just the basics of each space. You told me the drums over here in the corner. So what's going on over here?
Yeah, so I was telling you, one time before off camera that we had changed this studio setting around so many different times. We'll probably do another one of these next year because see what we've changed again next year. But the drums used to be in the center of the room. We've kind of moved those over in the corner. This is Bart's. He does our keyboards and mostly acoustic guitars and electric guitars for us. So this is his somewhat 25% of the studio, his world that he lives in. He can do what he wants with his keyboards. And then we have our mixing and mastering station and setup here, and we'll go into that in a little bit more detail. And then you guys usually kind of hang out on the couch back here when you're playing or over here in this space. So what this was able to do, since we don't just use this for recording, we use this for our band practice as well too. So this has kind of opened up this middle section of the floor to kind of give us an opportunity to spread out a little bit more when we practice.
Yeah, I think it works really well for that.
Yeah.
So what's going over here? We talked about this little utility-looking area over here. What's this about?
So we had so much wires and so many things laying around. You start to accumulate over the years. I just had to get something a little bit neater. So this is a little workstation, so we can throw a guitar up on here. You know, I can do a setup. We can change the strings and so forth and so on. Just kind of neaten things up. We've got some mics stored away in here and some foam. We've got some tubes for the amps, spare tubes. We've got guitar strings. We've got wireless cables. So this was just a good way to hide a bunch of junk. Got our Detoxic WD-40 guitar polish cleaners, you know, guitar picks, some of the pedals that are up here. This actually is on wheels. This is I bought off Amazon for just a few $100s. It's not the most sturdiest thing in the world, but it works really well for this. But I can literally just roll this out into the center, and I can walk around the guitar when I change strings and stuff, which makes it a lot easier, where I used to have to try to wind up over here on the side. Makes it so much easier now to change strings.
That's cool, man.
Guitar, so
that's cool.
Keeps little things a little bit neater.
Yeah, you're so organized. I wish I had your organization skills.
Yeah.
Or discipline is really what it is.
It's taken 10 years to make this small little step.
Hey, so, you know, as I look around, right, your studio, you know, it's where we practice. And I've known you a while. I've been over here, you know, over the years several times, and before we got together as a band. But, you know, you got a lot of really cool... All right, man, so tell me, who's this guy? I thought this was Blind Willie, who's like a famous guy in a town in Georgia called Thompson. But who's this guy right here?
Yeah, pretty close. This is a guy named Reverend Gary Davis, and he was a blues gospel singer from started out his career kind of in the 1930s. Our bass player that used to be with the band, Jacobs, actually gave me that picture.
Yeah, I know Jake.
So cheers that. So it's pretty cool. But he lived, I think the guy was from Lawrence, South Carolina, but a blues guy. Warren Hayes from the Allman Brothers has actually covered some of his stuff. This frame was actually, I think, from his home place. I think Henry Wynn was the artist.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that.
There's some details on the back. So it's a pretty cool photograph. I really cherish this. Jake's got another one that I need to try to get from him. Hopefully, maybe he'll watch this and maybe give it to me next Christmas or something. But pretty cool. I like a lot of the history and the Thompson area, not too far from here. It has got a lot of history of Blind Willie and so forth and so on. And
now, is this Blind Willie up here?
No, that's a picture that I've got. I just picked up somewhere. I just thought it was kind of cool.
Yeah.
And I think I don't know if it's a reproduction, how people just kind of make stuff that looks old. Maybe I have to kind of research that a little bit sometime or another.
Yeah, that's cool.
And then over here on this wall, we got a second annual. I don't have the first, but I got the second annual poster from the Blind Willie that they have up in Thompson, Georgia. So it's pretty cool. He was a famous 12-string guitar player. Yeah.
I think a couple years ago, Samantha Fish... you guys don't know who Samantha Fish is. She's a blues player, plays slide and cigar box guitars and stuff. She's really great. But yeah, check her out. But yeah, so that's not Blind Willie. It's okay. I keep saying Blind Willie over and over again. We finally get landed on it right over here. I knew it was in here somewhere. But tell me about this little this picture you got over here. What's this one?
That's one my wife actually did. So I have ladies kind of get together and do the little artwork sometimes. So yeah. Candy had done that for me.
Now, was this before she kicked you out of the house? And she's like,
after that was.
She's like, flowing out her crazy. I'm going crazy. This, what would a psychologist say about this?
That was a makeup gift.
Would it be like, somebody help me, or man, I love my husband. This is a great guitar.
She loves her husband.
Because if it was before or after, you came out here in the studio. I think it matters. She's probably a lot more calm now. So. All right, so let's go over here to the bread and butter over here. We got your studio
this is where
set up.
Where we say all the magic happens, so to speak. So I'll tell you a little bit about some of the gear that we use in the recording process. Pretty much use Studio Live. I'm a big Personas fanboy, as you'll be able to see by the stuff that we have here. I started out, I think, with Cakewalk. Trying to record a few things, went to Pro Tools, just found it very, very difficult. Bought bought a Studio One mixer, I think the 16 channel, one of the first ones they had that came with the free artist software. Started with that. And really there was so much online help from people like Joe Gilder and so many of the other ones that I just found it easy to pick up, and I've stuck with Studio One for
That's what matters, right? Being able to get help, SOS.
It really is. I mean,
So I have the same DAW as Ray, because the reason why I got it, to his point, is because he had it, and another friend of mine has it. So if I have a question, I could
So we run the full blown Studio version 6. I keep it updated. Just updated to the latest 6 add-on to correct some bugs in it just yesterday. But really happy with the Studio One setup. A couple things that run everything through the board. For the most part, I use Studio One preamps in the board. I do have 2, and I'm a fan of these. They're relatively probably one of the cheapest preamps that you can get is the Art Pro MPA2s. I've got 2 of them. The first one that I've had...
I'm sorry, I wasn't zooming in on here. Let's check that out. People might be interested in this.
Yeah, so these are 2 things that I use other than the preamps that are on the Studio Live board. I have 2 Pro MPA2s from Art. They're relatively fairly inexpensive. They're about $400 or $500. It's a 2-channel. I've got 2 of them. The first one's about 8 or 9 years old. Sadly, one of the channels went out on it, but I still use the other one, run some bass guitar through that. Then I use some simulators for the bass in Studio One.
So what is that doing for your sound? What are you trying to get out of the Pro?
Where this one shines, where I use this one mostly, is this has a mid-side function, and I record acoustic. Now, and we'll talk into detail maybe on another video on the on some recording techniques. So typically, if you're familiar at all with the with mid-side recording for acoustics and other instruments, what you do is you have one regular mic pointed at a place on your guitar, then you have a ribbon mic that's catching both left and right sides of that. You duplicate the ribbon channel mic, you duplicate that, and you invert one of those and you blend those in for a nice stereo type feel. What the MP8 does is you don't have to duplicate the ribbon mic track. You press their magic button on their mid-side function, that automatically inverts the section and gives you 2 tracks, not stereo tracks, but gives you 2 tracks to blend. A very, very nice acoustic sound that I absolutely love, and it's hard for me to get away from that. Listen to on our YouTube channel. I've been needing you the acoustic work on that. Listen to that, and that's running through the MPA.
Yeah, it's a good sounding track.
Yeah. So I use that for acoustics. Recording, and the reason why I bought the second one because the mid-side function failed on that one, so I had to get the second one. The other place that I use that is on vocals. If I'm using the SM7B Shure mic, which needs about a 20 or 30 decimal boost in power instead of a cloud lift, this has got a 20 decimal hard plate lift gain, so it's very, very clean. So I'll use that for vocals if I'm using the SM7B.
So for vocals, gain staging is what you're looking for, and for acoustic guitars, for the way you record.
Yeah, absolutely. So those are my go-to.
What else? Do you run anything else through there? Any drums or any guitars?
No drums, no guitars. Only
just acoustic.
Mic'd acoustics and the vocals.
Okay.
And something that I have learned the hard way, and it's taken me 10 years to learn, is when you find something that it works and it sounds good. Not that we don't like to experiment in the studio for new recording techniques, certainly do all the time. But when you find something that works, just stick with it and keep it pretty simple.
Yeah.
Big fan of Joe Gilder's Get It Right at the Source. It certainly does cut a lot of time out. And then everything else up here is pretty much central station, so we can change from this set of monitors here to our mains to QSCs. I don't have a sub hooked up to it right now, but you can add the sub on that. I had their other monitor, PreSonus's monitor station. I can't remember what it was called, but the difference with this one is everything's so much cleaner. It just comes in right there.
So that's for your output speakers to listen back. And speaking of which, what do you got going on here? What kind of speakers are these?
Yeah, so these are Callies. These are the latest Callie 8-inch 3-way speakers. If anything that's made a bigger difference in the way I mix, it is these Callie speakers. So I've had some. I started out with some really cheap Mackies. Had some JBLs. I think the Mark IIs, 308s. I think they were forever. Worked pretty good. My old dead rock and roll ears, it really takes a lot for me to hear a lot of difference. When I got the Callies, I could instantaneously hear a difference in it. And the other thing that's probably, which is most people won't think about, makes a big difference. I certainly didn't. But these ISO stands that are up underneath these monitors, right here behind my bass duct player,
Yeah.
these used to sit on foam. And I didn't realize how much people talk about it. I just thought it was a bunch of hype. When I got these and put these under here and got these off of this wood and off of that foam, I could instantly hear a huge difference in the way I mix.
Interesting. So the wood would resonate on the they were sitting on, or
so it would make all that resonate. I didn't really realize it, but it made a tremendous difference.
So I'm thinking the big part of your studio sound that's important is this thing right here. Seriously, right there. It's called the ST1, a stone, a rock.
Oh yeah,
right. Get things rocking.
Yeah. So you want me to tell you what that is? This is a cool history. So my mother was German.
Okay.
My father tried to help people over the Berlin Wall when it was communist. That is a piece of rock that my family sent me from the Berlin Wall.
That's cool.
And that's graffiti, that paint on it's graffiti. I've got a couple pieces of that. So I keep that up here as a memento. But part of my family over there, when they were tearing down that wall, that is a piece of the actual Berlin Wall.
So fun fact, I've been to Germany, and I've been to, I was there when East Berlin was the thing. Mm-hmm. The wall was still up, and I left there probably about, I don't know, it's just a matter of months before they took the wall down. I think it was in '89 when they took it down. Mm-hmm. So I was actually doing some work there that year for the Army, and just left. And anyways, dude, that's a really cool story. Yeah, it's a thing for those that don't remember. You could not go back and forth between East Germany and West Germany without presenting your papers and whatnot. And some people were pretty much stuck in East Germany that wanted to come to the West, but couldn't, and now they can. So that's a really good sidebar to remember and to discuss, because that's a big change in history, and that's a really good thing. All right, brother. So tell me about, you got some other things here. What's this switching thing going on at the bottom of your rack?
So that's just power. So I can turn all the mixers on, all the monitors on, all the headphone amps on, all by right there. I can, and I don't have them on right now, but we can also turn the lava lamps on.
Oh, okay.
Got extra spotlights on up here if we need extra lighting to give us some mood. This runs a pedal board on the other side that I can keep off, so I can turn everything on right there. This is just a power conditioner. That other things are plugged into the back of it, which is pretty cool. Plug my iPhone in here when it's running down. Plug my iPad, my old iPad, in here that we use sometimes to remotely control Studio One. So a lot of times I'll be over here singing vocals, and I can run Studio One off of the iPad. I'll throw the session up on this big monitor up here. If I'm standing back, to kind of look at that a little bit further and run it remotely if I'm back here doing vocals. And I usually do vocals by myself. I usually do them at night. So kind of run the session on my own. And another thing too, I don't know, I just bought this monitor here just a couple months ago. It's an LG widescreen monitor. But this used to sit here. And when we did the Be Like Jesus EP, from me looking up at this high corner right here, I don't look at this monitor from down here, but even just sitting here flat on the desk, I ended up getting a crick in my neck and lost the feeling and the motion of my two fingers. And when we did the CD release party before it was coming out, and I didn't know what was going on, I couldn't even use these two fingers, so to try to play lead was really a struggle. I barely got through the show. That finally got better after a few months. As soon as we started working on this project that we're working on now, and I started doing mixing and started doing recording, I started to lose the feeling in these two fingers, and I finally figured it out. It was from my neck looking up too much at that big screen.
Ergonomics, man. It's
so
important.
I've had to, I posted on the Personas forum, hey, anybody ever experienced this? Yeah, he said, that's a real thing. So I got rid of that up there, got a smaller monitor that's more level. I use a secondary monitor here, so a lot of times I'll have the session here, I'll have some level meters or things here going on, or sometimes I might have words or vocals here if I'm songwriting, but I still use a split screen. But that one's mostly now for if I'm sitting on the couch back there to watch the ball game, or if I'm doing a remote session and I need to stand a little bit further back and still be able to see.
All right, cool. So what's this central station thing right here?
Yeah, so that's pretty awesome. So that's the, I guess that's the,
thing up here.
yeah. So this is from Personas, and what this does is this is remotely. This is the remote part of the central station here,
Okay.
and this changes between.
Oh, so that's the control box external for that. Gotcha.
Yep, and
okay.
then that also controls 2 different mixes on what we hear in our headphones when we're recording. So I can send a different mix to Earl. Earl doesn't like to hear anything but my vocals and a click track when he records, when he's recording his drums.
Yeah.
I use the other channel in the Persona station coming into mine because I want to hear his drums and I want to hear everything together as a band, as a blend. I want to hear the closest sound.
Yeah, that's
to
huge.
It. So we can send that central station allows us to send different mixes out, a couple different mixes out, and that goes right into up underneath to the headphone amp that we can run all the way up to 6 different monitor mixes out of that if we need to. Typically, we only need 1 to 2 because of the way we have to run our sessions in here. We don't have an ISO booth,
So when you say 6 monitors out, so it's typical like it's a bus, mix bus. Each
basically.
one,
So everybody
has their own individual mix,
right?
But you don't use like the P16 or that like the Behringer P16 type of Cat 5 interface. You do, so there's a cord that comes out of here to each musician. Yeah,
that's right.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep. And the good thing about it is we can run it out of the front. What we have now is to run out of the back, so it's nice and clean in the front. So there's 3 different headphones that are already set up. One's running over here in the corner. One's already on Earl's drum kit over here. We leave everything mic'd up and ready to go.
Why do you do that?
We decide we want to record it tomorrow afternoon, we can record.
Why do you do that, Ray? Why do you leave everything hooked up?
Yeah, just so we can record right away.
So are you telling me that it's no fun to like set up for
no fun to set
every
up.
time?
No fun to set up. I got to tweak
Right.
the levels a little bit depending on Earl's mood, how hard he's going to bang on these drums, but we're ready to go. So we've got headphones already set up. If we decide we want to lay down something really quick, we can.
That's cool, man. So
I have found, speaking of that, I have found over the years, by the time I can get a session going, get something mic'd up for an acoustic, I have lost all of my inspiration. I probably forgot the little melody or what I've thought of that I wanted to lay down really quick to come back to. But I've got even this set up where I can run this. I can take my talkback mic out of here, plug another channel in to run a scratch track, and hit my acoustic straight in, either to the MPA or straight into the board, and lay down a really fast scratch track if I'm inspired.
Let's talk about that microphone for a second. So looking at that microphone, is that a condenser? Is it dynamic? Does it get to run power 48 volts to power it? What's going on with that thing?
That's a good question. It's so this is brand new. Just got this like 2 weeks ago.
The Shure.
Shure 55. I think it's just a standard. I don't even think it's 48. I got that just because one, I thought it was pretty cool. So just using that.
It is cool, man. Look at that
mic.
thing. I think it's vibing right there. Look at that.
Now, what is surprising is I did a scratch track vocal with that the other day on a song that I was working on that y'all haven't heard yet, and that thing is clear and sounds really good. I don't know that I won't use that mic to really record a real vocal that we're going to release. The mic sounded really good. It's pretty cool. But we'll probably have a future video at some point in time where we discuss the mics and some other recording gear and stuff like that. So make sure that you subscribe, like to hit the bell, and do all that kind of good stuff to stay informed if you like these type of videos.
All right, Ray. So let's talk about ergonomics and recording process. How do you do your vocals? Where do you stand? Kind of how do you set up for that?
Yeah. So some of the things the way we would start off early in the process is. So we don't have ISO booths in here, so we have to track a little bit different than what you would typically do in a, $500,000 or $1 million studio up in Nashville or somewhere. But we can make by and do pretty well. So the first thing that I do is I record a scratch vocal to a track in time to either just to a click track or to some kind of a beat. Then what we do is we can track Earl and his drums. We'll play drums to that scratch track. We can run bass at the same time because typically bass is going to go directly into the MPA2 and then into an amp simulator into the software. I have mic'd a bass cabinet and run 2 and blended those before, but I tell you what, the simulators have gotten so good. Recently going straight into that MPA, which is not a bad sound. You can actually overdrive. It's a tube preamp, so you can actually overdrive that if you want a little bit of dirt in it. But typically we'll lay down the drums, we'll lay down the bass, we'll get us a good pocket. The keys are direct in, so we don't have to worry about that if we're recording keys. Then we have to come back and overdub acoustic guitars, and then we'll lay electric guitars down, and then vocals. The only thing that hurts us here a little bit in this studio, we're on almost 50 acres here at Studio 825. But we still do have some noise from neighbors if they're running a leaf blower. So during the day, it's usually not bad. The day's been pretty quiet. We're not full-blown thick walls like you would in the studio. It's not perfectly isolated. So a lot of the vocals I do at night, I do by myself. Those are the biggest things.
Yeah, eliminate all that.
We've got
white
recently
noise.
we've put in just a couple years ago was our AC and our heater unit up here, which is pretty cool. It's really, really quiet. The only time I really have to shut that off is if I'm recording acoustic guitars and if I'm doing vocals. But we actually did our Christmas CD a couple years ago before we had that in the middle of the summer. We were recording in here and it was 98 degrees. And
Oh,
we're
that's a
doing
bummer.
Christmas music,
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
it was pretty tough to get into the Christmas spirit.
Because you can't record Christmas music at Christmas; it's too late, right?
And that's exactly right. And I had to do something. So we invested in a little heat and AC, and I'm surprisingly how inexpensive that's added. One to the electric bill is hardly anything, and then it is quiet. So, but that's a little bit about our recording process and some of our limitations.
I got a question for you. People are probably wondering this. I know, and I
Yeah.
was wondering. So when you look at in here, and we talked about the layout of the the building and all the guitars and stuff in here, and we all know one thing about guitars is the weather and temperature causes it to bend, and get out of shape and get now you got tuning problems and fretting and all this kind of stuff. So you just talked about your air conditioner. What about the humidity?
Yeah, so that does have a humidity mode on it too. And I don't know if you picked it up on camera, but I keep a pretty close eye on the humidity. We're at 41% today.
Oh yeah, okay.
Which is pretty good. I think they tell me, people have told me somewhere around 45 is pretty ideal. So 41% is pretty good. I just tuned up one of my guitars a little while ago when it was sharp on all the strings, which tells me with all this rain that we've had all week, it's absorbed a lot of moisture. But that unit does have some dehumidifier aspects on it. During the summer, if we're running a lot of heat in here, I will put a humidifier in the corner too, just to keep a little bit of moisture in the air. So I keep a somewhat close eye on that.
And so, if you guys were watching the news recently in Georgia, we had some of the coldest weather we've had in our area, like 6 degrees, that sort of thing.
So 3 days ago, we had everything froze over, and the ponds were froze over, and it was got down to 6 degrees. And today, I'm in short sleeves and
Welcome
pretty
to Georgia.
comfortable. So
yeah. So how did it do in here during that extreme cold? Did it hold out pretty good?
yeah, it holds out pretty good. Yeah.
Okay.
So that little that unit right there heats and cools this space really well, and I just keep it on all the time.
That's important,
And
man.
right now I got it set on 71 degrees, and it'll hold that through the winter, through the summer. That's pretty much where it lives all the time, and it maintains everything pretty good.
All right, man. I think that do have one other question I want to ask you. So I haven't seen you use this in a while, but I notice up here on the ceiling you have this padded, chained up, like almost like a crib. If you lowered, like a baby would sleep there or something.
So that's
tell me about what that thing is.
Yeah, so that's my attempt at sound treating the room. So I have had bass traps in here before on all the corners, and somebody probably instantly looks at this room and they say, "Man, you got no sound treatment." So here's the deal. This is for our mixed position. This will actually, I can unhook the chain in the back. This will come down if I want to do vocals, and I can sing into this, and it's shaped like a V.
That's very good.
So we do that sometimes. This room is fairly dead. If I'm recording at night, I don't have to really isolate too much sound. It really doesn't
It is amazing just how dead this room is in terms of audio. It's like there's no echo in here. I mean, it's concrete floors, wooden walls, a couple throw rugs down here and there, but it just the acoustics in here. Even when the drums are playing, I mean, it sounds great.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
We had this at one time when the drums were over in the center of the room. They were over the drums, which helped a lot. But since we moved that in the corner with all the drapes, that has
I bet they made a huge difference.
has made a huge difference in the drums and the echo and the resonate. So it does good. Sound treatment. I know this room when I'm mixing. I know after it took me, it took a minute, right? It literally took about 5 or 6 years before I found the weaknesses of this room. And that's why when you look, man, there's no sound treatment. I've been in some studios where Grammy award winning people have produced and mastered music, and even some of them in the Hall of Fame. And the room is not much different than this. There's not a lot of sound treatment up in any. I think sometimes that we overhype that a little bit, personally.
So a big part of it is how you capture the sound.
And
it's engineering, right? The equipment that you use, not just the room. So you can have a great room and have a really, what I'm trying to say is you can have a really great room, it's all treated, and have a lousy recording also.
Well, and
right?
you have to learn, in the mixing process, you have to learn the room, the limitations of the room. I know that I don't hear a lot of bass in this room when I'm mixing. I know somewhere, that mud below 50 hertz and that 80 above and that mid lows, that I don't hear that in this room. And I know that if I crank that up to where I need to hear it, where it sounds right in here, it's going to be muddy when I listen to it in the truck. Now that I'm aware of it, I'm real sensitive to those frequencies that I know of this room doesn't resonate well. And from what I understand, talking to the other people that are much more smarter on this than me, that I'm still learning, believe me. I don't care how good your room is. Every producer and every engineer has to learn that room and what the weaknesses and strengths are of it. And I also use, and I rely on, and you see more and more people do it. This is like, for traditionalists, it's a no-no, but more and more people are doing it. But I use the headphones a lot when I get down to the final mixes. These are AKG 701s, open back headphones for design specifically for mixing. They work very well for me. I have those broke, so I bought the AKGs because I was a big fan of them, the 712s. A lot different in your ears. You have to get used to them.
So that's the thing, is consistency, I would imagine,
Yes.
because if you change the way you listen to your sounds all the time, you're not sure how it's going to come out in the end. But if you do consistent listen, I think you can anticipate what it'll sound like in your car or whatever, and kind of get a better idea of what you're producing.
Yeah, exactly right. And these, I was getting a different feel with those. I could instantly hear that and hear the difference in my mixes. I took these apart and found a wire that had broke, and I fixed it. I was just going to trash them because I'd bought those, and these are fairly expensive headphones. So I went back in and fixed them, and so these are still what I use today. I also got this new Waves plug-in of the NX. I can't even remember exactly what they call it. So the downside with headphones, as anybody will tell you, is that you don't get a true representation of the stereo field. When you're listening here, you hear the crossover of the sound from the stereo. Here, everything is isolated. With this new software, from what they're telling me, and I haven't used it very much at all, we're going to experiment with it a little bit, but it blends in this stereo field in between the two. It's not isolated left and right.
What's the software called?
It's from Waves.
Waves?
NX or UX. People won't have a problem Googling that and finding out what that is. But you can emulate. It emulates different studios. Abbey Roads, I think Blackbird. I've got 2 or 3 different ones. So this next project that we're going to be releasing coming up here early, probabprobably February or March of 2023. If you're listening to it way after that, we're getting ready to release Road of Grace. It's going to be the title of the CD, or the first single that's going to come out on it.
Very cool.
And I'm going to experiment with it. It's not something that I'm going to rely on for my mixes, but between the open, the Calis, between the 701s, between that software running it through, you can see the mains, the QSCs behind you. I'll swing over in the chair and I'll give a listen over here in the center of the room so I get that feel too a little bit louder. So I use, like a lot of engineers or people, we use several different reference points and mixes, not to mention all of the reference tracks that I'll have into that particular session too. So I'm using the Calis. I did have a smaller set of monitors that I used, different set of headphones, the new software and the QSCs, and then I'm going to burn it down. I'm going to take it out to the truck and take a ride and listen to it there too.
Yeah, I think that matters. Yeah.
But those are a little bit, those are some of the, as far as the soundproofing of the room and some of the treatment. And this is a good place for storage too, honestly. Got some blankets up here. I have hung those up in the center of the room and kind of isolated the drums. I have even ran that down here when I've been mixing before, because this is sitting, as if you kind of get a broad idea of the room, it's not The ideal mixing position for this room would be this to be in the center and a third of the way back. You know, for when you're doing all the rules of geometry and mixing what they'll tell you when you start to lay out a studio. So obviously we're not that way. I've got a couple feet from the back wall, and it's pushed all the way over here. Wouldn't be any different if I was in a 12 by 20 room, but I have laid those blankets down here. But honestly and truly, I didn't get that much of a difference. And the only thing I can think of, you know, we talk about all the stuff in the room and people using diffusers and different other kinds of sounds. I think with all the guitars and just all of the clutter laying around, I think it somewhat acts as a diffuser. Almost, they're hard,
it has to.
They're hard surfaces.
Something's working in here
Yeah.
because it just doesn't echo. It just sounds really great.
And I know that people will comment on this and hey, you really need this, that, and the other. And I don't disagree with you, but we have our limitations that we use for this smaller space for practice and for mixing, and I think we're able to achieve some pretty decent results for what we had to work
I agree.
with, for sure.
Totally.
Yeah.
All right, man. Ray.
I appreciate you taking the time filming this. We're going to put this up on our channel. I know that you're going to put it up on yours too. So hope everybody tunes in and enjoys.
That's what bandmates do, man. We help each other out and whatnot, and it's good for me to kind of know some of this stuff. To understand when I see Ray turn around and pushing some buttons, or, flicking some switches, I kind of know what's going on. So that's a good thing to understand. All right, so we just wrapping this up, and it's a really good tour, and I appreciate it, Ray. Coming into your space like this and getting a good rundown.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, to find your content, our content as a band, where do we need to go for that?
Yeah, so it's secondchancerising.com is our website. You can also find us, obviously, you're here now, as on YouTube. We also have Twitter, Instagram accounts, Reverb Nation accounts. And if you go to our website, you can find links to all of those. So love for you to subscribe to our website as well as YouTube. Hit the like button. Hit the bell for future notifications. Also, if you see anything more that you want us to elaborate on, any kind of gear, want our thoughts, we'll shoot another video. Let us know in the comments. We really appreciate it.
Awesome. And, of course, you can follow this on Jim Stanton Guitar, same on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube as well. So I'm looking forward to coming back out here. What we really need to do, Ray, is we come back out here maybe next time is dig in these guitars a little bit and some of the instruments,
Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind that for some future videos, we're just getting the channel kind of up and going and kind of regrouping here after this pandemic and this downtime. But we'll do definitely some reviews of some of the guitars we have here, some of the amps. Big fan of boutique amps as well as some of the vintage Fender stuff we have. I'm sure that you're going to help us with some of the MIDI stuff that you've been doing on your pedal boards that we're always interested in. We'll talk about some recording techniques, some drumming techniques, and things like that too. So we just look forward to expanding it and getting to know more of our fans and more of our people interested in this. So.